Mark 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
RFD Today, a daily look at the key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your income, and your community. Here's your host for today's program, DeLaw Schonke.
Hey, good Friday to you, Illinois. Thanks for joining us for this adventure in broadcasting on the 3rd of May. And we appreciate have some good discussions today as well. Kelly Estes, our state pest survey coordinator, will be along. Well, we didn't freeze them, most likely, in January. Any chance that we've drowned them in these last couple of weeks? Probably not, but we'll talk about that and several other things. Plus, how do the traps, how do you make sure everything holds up after you get deluged with rain, if that actually takes place? Certainly those things are built to last, but how much can they take? We'll talk about that as well. Also on the program, Gene Payne, Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association. We'll have plenty to talk about from a fertilizer standpoint. Talked about closing things on the river all the way down in St. Louis, and could eventually be a point where you just can't get any barge traffic anywhere. And if not, what does that mean for a just-in-time type of fertilizer business? We'll get into that in a little bit. And we'll probably also talk about the notion of a bunch of staggered planting dates and what that might mean for chemical applications in weed management. And Sabrina Berkowitz will be along in a little bit, our senior social media specialist. She always has information, but I've got a little thing for her today. We're going to play a game of Kentucky Derby horse or modern pop band. That'll be later in the program. Stay tuned. Plenty to come here on a Friday, RFD Today.
About 70% of U.S. adults age 65 or older have high blood pressure, and only about half have it under control. Blood pressure medicine can protect the heart, brain, and kidneys, but many people aren't taking it as directed. This means they may skip doses or stop taking it altogether. To help patients, healthcare systems can involve the entire healthcare team to ensure patients are taking medicine as directed. Simplify blood pressure treatment by prescribing 90-day refills and combination medicines. Coordinate pill refills and prescribe generic medicines, encourage the use of home blood pressure monitors, and address financial barriers such as high copays and deductibles. Patients, follow your healthcare team's instructions on how much medicine to take, how often, and how long to take it. Ask questions about how to correctly take your medicines and why you need them. Use weekly pill boxes or a reminder system to keep track of when to take medicine. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
What's the excitement about buying a brand new car when you pay full price for it? County Farm Bureau members have a reason to be excited. A Farm Bureau membership gives you 2 car purchase discounts. When members buy a new Ford vehicle, they receive $500 off their purchase. And with the purchase of a qualifying Lincoln vehicle, they receive $750 off. Everyone loves a good deal, and the money saved is worth the price of our annual membership. This is just one of our 300,000 plus discounts that are always changing to fit our members' needs. Not a Farm Bureau member? Visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
RFD Radio Network's Rita Frazier connects rural routes for you. Rita delivers passion and reliable information to listeners on the RFD Radio Network. Her radio career spans close to 3 decades. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I grew up on a small farm. My job today allows me to connect with people from all walks of life and experience opportunity every day. I get to talk about what I love, farming.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Welcome back to RFD Today on a Friday. I'm DeLaw Schonke, and we welcome to the program Illinois State Pest Survey Coordinator Kelly Estes is on the phone. Kelly, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Hey, we're doing all right, thank you. I was just curious, because we talked in February. Well, we can't freeze them in January, I assume, so we probably can't flood our pests in April and May, can we?
Boy, we sure are trying to drown them, though, aren't we?
Oh, my gosh, one thing after another. But I assume they're pretty resilient. It might delay some of these counts, but they'll still be around whenever that time is right.
They probably will. They are fairly resilient. How that's going to affect Japanese beetle emergence here, we've still got a ways to go before we would see any of that happening. And if it was this wet as corn rootworms were hatching in later May, I'd say we definitely would get some benefit out of it. But at this point, it's still a little too early to tell.
No, that's too bad. Japanese beetles, that'll be one to watch of just how big the populations are and how widespread, because there were some folks that just were amazed at the population numbers last year.
They were very, very high, particularly in western, and then increasing with some big jumps in northwestern Illinois, too. And, those areas, lots and lots of flooding, as well as several other areas around Illinois. So, maybe we'll get a little benefit. I'm always the person that likes to see the silver lining, so we'll cross our fingers and hope to get a little bit of benefit out of that as well. I have read that we tend to, Japanese beetle larval populations tend to be more affected by drought than flooding.
Really?
Or really saturated soils, but I'm going to have to go back and look at that article because, this is some excessive water we have in some soils around here, so maybe we can get a little better understanding of that.
I still remember the article I did 2 years ago with a farmer in southern Illinois, and when it's this wet, there are so many things to do, including burn down cover crops. And how do you burn down the cover crop if you can't get in the field? So they might, may be difficult to manage in some spots. And a couple of years ago, found a lot of slugs in the cover crops.
Slugs do like it cool and wet. When we have those cover crops, it does provide a lot of green space for different insects. And so we have right now black cutworm and true armyworm both migrating in from the south. The rain is not stopping those. Our counts are pretty low overall right now, but even last year we had sustained flights all the way through the end of May. And so that's something I really want to keep an eye on as we progress through this month. With later planting, not being able to get out and get weeds killed or cover crop off, there will be lots of lush green area for them to lay eggs in.
What were those that you were talking about?
True armyworm and black cutworm.
Oh, and black cutworms. Wow.
Yeah.
So this could be some prime condition for them, or they certainly have plenty of feeding ground.
Yeah, there's definitely some opportunity there, depending on how the next couple of weeks flush themselves out. We are seeing some black cutworm flights. We have had significant flights over in western Illinois in Warren County, and then down in Hamel in Madison County, and then over in Fayette County too. And then we have several counties where have had a little bit higher flights, but not reached that significant flight that we look for of 9 or more moths over 2 nights.
I'm not saying that as an anti-cover crop guy. I'm totally a pro-cover crop guy, especially when it's this wet and you need to hold soil in place. There are just some management practices that come with having those that also need to be recognized. So that's just part of the deal.
Most definitely. It's just, cover crops are great, and we're still learning so much about them. And I know Dr. Sider has some work going on with several of the extension folks around the state looking at cover crops and insect pressure. And so we just continue to learn, as with everything, as we go from year to year.
Now, is there any concern? So you set traps, and surely you set them in a place where they're going to be there to stay. Hopefully they don't get rained out, flooded out, anything like that. I assume they're at a place where even in the stretch that we've had this past week, they're still going to be there for a while.
I have not had any reports of missing traps so far. generally we will get traps that blow away when we have really big thunderstorms, and we just haven't had those tornado watches, tornado warnings, heavy wind events. What we've had is sustained heavy rain, and traps are still in place as far as I know. A little trick that we do with our bucket traps, because they tend to collect water, is we actually put sponges in there, and that kind of helps soak up the water and maintain the quality of insects to identify them. But when we're dealing with 2 and 3 inches over 2 days, they don't always work the best.
Well, yeah. Just wonder how, do they lose their stickiness over time? I'm sure they're built to be sticky, but at some point, do they just get a little soaked too much?
They can. Some of our traps are plastic-based, and some of them are really thick, papery cardboard-based, and those do tend to get a little soggier faster, and so pheromones will last, on average, 3 weeks during this time of year, but we can always replace bottoms and put the lure back on until we're ready, because the trick is to keep traps functional, because even if the trap's wet and it's raining, insects are still out there.
All right. So at this point, though, you've had a few traps to notice, or army worms, black cutworms, Japanese beetles, things to take a look at. But because of the weather we've had, I assume it's just a little slow this time of year.
It is a little slow this time of year. It's not a lot going on. As far as our surveys haven't started, I know they're looking at starting a wheat virus survey here in the next couple weeks around the state, and we'll be getting our traps out for our orchard survey here probably in the next 2 weeks. That's one area we can get into. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, with the lack of planting, our corn and soybean surveys will probably get pushed back a couple weeks this year.
Sure. Hang on the line. We have a break coming up here. Kelly Estes, our State Pest Survey Coordinator on RFD today.
Hi, this is Sabrina Hardy, RFD Business Manager. I want to thank you for listening to the RFD Radio Network, the #1 ag radio network in Illinois. Did you know RFD Radio Network's programming is being broadcast by Rita Frazier and Delosh Yankee with a combined 50 years of broadcasting experience? Join us daily. If you have any questions, email me at chardy@ilfb.org.
As you prepare for planting season, remember your neighbors. Whether you're an applicator, grower, or beekeeper, use FieldWatch to register your farm and monitor for sensitive sites around you. FieldWatch is a free, easy-to-use online mapping tool. Consulting FieldWatch is now a requirement for the over-the-top use dicamba products. Communicating with your neighbors will help you protect your farm and the environment. Don't wait. Go online to fieldwatch.com. Growing agriculture, we grow best together.
You're going to need me.
You're going to need us.
All of us.
You're going to need our technical skills,
our math, our engineering skills.
You're going to need our help with your water, your air, your food.
You're going to need our organizational skills, our problem-solving skills.
You're going to need our determination, our honesty, our compassion.
You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring.
And we promise, we'll be there when you need us.
Today, 4-H is growing the next generation of leaders. Support us at 4h.org.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere. allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
All right, welcome back to RFD Today on a Friday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Joining us over the phone, Kelly Estes, our State Pest Survey Coordinator, talking about a number of different things this time of year in particular. You can give Kelly a follow on Twitter, by the way, at IL Pest Survey. So once we do get into planning, hopefully there'll be a lot more traps, a lot more things to see. I was going to ask, too, we were talking about weeds and cover crops as feeding areas. I assume then, hopefully we'll have some pretty lush wheat, especially in southern Illinois, but there's plenty of wheat around the state. I assume that could be pretty good feeding ground as well then?
For insects that are attracted to wheat, so we are looking at the armyworm flights, monitoring that, timing with when the wheat starts to head, and as armyworm moth flights pick up, we'll look and see where those flights are at and what areas might be a little bit more prone to armyworm feeding within those wheat fields this year as well.
Do you have anything that is noteworthy? Like some people hear certain birds singing and they think, oh, that's a sign of spring. Do you have any particular species or anything that when the counts start going up, that's a certain sign of this time of year? And especially if we're this wet, that those are just things that get delayed this year that don't necessarily get delayed every year.
Oh, that's a good question. And great job putting me on the spot on it.
I didn't mean it to be that.
Oh, there are, but I'm drawing a complete blank right now. We always. I know one sign of spring that my kids always start looking for are insects flying around the porch lights, and so things are starting to get warmer. And one of those things that we picked up outside on the back porch yesterday when we got home from school and work is May beetle. And I generally expect those a little bit later in May, but I think all this wet soil made it really easy to emerge and come out. So I'm gonna ask Joe Spencer down the hall here today. He's really good at writing these kind of things down. He'll always make note of when he sees the first of different things of each year. So it seems a little early for me for that, but maybe I'm just completely wrong as well. So you'll start seeing those May beetles near lights hitting your windshields here in the next couple weeks, and with that we generally start to see the increase in the insect windshield activity as the nights get warmer as well.
What's the difference between a May beetle and any other beetle? Is it just a beetle that you find in May? I assume a May beetle is different than a Japanese beetle, for example?
It is. So there's lots of different Philophaga species, if you will. Grubs. The grubs are their immature form. So we have lots of different white grubs that we look for in the soil. Japanese beetles are one. What we consider May beetles, which are also a lot of people refer to as June bugs, are those big brown beetles that we start seeing in spring as things start to warm up as well. And there's other different species that you can see, but those are our big ones that are associated with lawn and gardens and also the agricultural community.
I saw on your Twitter account that you were keeping that one for the collection. I'd be quite curious what your collection, I mean, I have some old baseball cards, but I wonder what your collection looks like.
Well, now that I have two kids in 4-H, there's also a lot of fighting over insects. And be like, I'm taking that one for my collection, and you've already got that, so I get it. So the 6-year-old saw it, and she's like, I need that one. So got to make sure there's enough insects to go around, I guess.
Well, that's nice that you have a couple of engaged kids on that sort of thing, too. So that's good. That's better than one saying, I don't care, and the other one saying, I'll take them. So at least you have two that are both very interested. One thing that I did see, and I think it's later in the month, talking about invasive species. And I know there's a conference or symposium coming up in a couple of weeks.
So May is Invasive Species Awareness Month, and you'll see it a lot with different groups. Maybe they might be pulling garlic mustard or awareness on invasive plants. Of course, right now there's a lot of insect activity going on, but emerald ash borer will be coming active here towards late May. And then we also have an invasive species awareness symposium that highlights different and current invasive research and projects that are going around the state, and that is May 23rd here in Champaign at the Champaign County Extension Office. And if you go to the Champaign County Extension website, you can find the link to registration as well as the agenda. Lots of varying talking, I think, invasive plants, insects. I want to say there might even be a talk on feral hogs, but I could be wrong on that.
This is one where I might not have this in my county, but I need to be prepared just in case it starts heading my way, though.
It is. There's lots of, some of the talks will focus on what's happening in different aspects. Some could be how we're currently managing this particular plant in our area that could be beneficial to people around the state, no matter where you're at.
Well, hey, good to visit with you, and I'm sure you'll really get going. I'm sure you have a bunch of high water boots on to get some investigative work done these next couple of weeks.
I got my muck boots ready. We're ready whenever it dries out.
All right. Boy, hopefully that's sooner rather than later. Thanks, Kelly. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Kelly Estes, the Illinois State Pest Survey Coordinator. You can follow her on Twitter at ILPestSurvey. Gene Payne is in studio, president of Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association, and we'll shoehorn a lot of issues into a couple segments here on RFD today.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
Attention corn farmers. Your corn checkoff dollars are working with the U.S. Meat Export Federation to grow red meat export volumes. Because when we're exporting beef, we're also exporting corn. The beef industry consumes 28% of all corn fed to livestock, plus additional corn in the form of DDGs, a co-product of ethanol production. Now that's what we call working an angle. Your checkoff is working corn from all angles. Because of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board, your profitability is our bottom line. A message from the Illinois Corn Checkoff.
Does the warmer weather have you itching for a weekend getaway? Take your Illinois Farm Bureau membership savings with you.
Farm Bureau members can save up to 20% at choice hotels, including favorites like Comfort Suites, Sleep Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, with even more to choose from.
Call 800-258-2847 or visit the Choice Hotels website to search all the hotels at once and to make advance reservations.
Contact your local county farm bureau for your discount code number.
From midnight snacks to holiday gatherings, food is a part of our culture that brings us together every day. To make sure we all have food on our tables, Illinois farmers are going beyond planting crops and raising animals. We're making sure the wildlife that helps our food grow has homes too. To learn more about conservation efforts, visit ilfarmersconserve.com. Preserving our water, protecting our land, providing our food.
This message brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau.
All ag.
All Illinois.
All now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food.
Farm Week and Partners Magazine editor Chris Anderson connects rural routes for you. Chris shares her 4 decades of writing expertise by making sure each edition delivers the best information. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I was raised on a farm in Champaign County growing corn, soybeans, popcorn, pumpkins, and poultry. My top priority is to inform, educate, and even entertain Farm Bureau members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Farm, family, food. Those 3 words best describe Illinois Farm Bureau. Farm, For 100 years, Farm Bureau in Illinois has represented and served the men and women who make Illinois one of the top food-producing states. Family. At the heart of rural Illinois are traditional farm families who work together through Illinois Farm Bureau. And food. Farm Bureau families are proud to grow the healthy food they provide their families and yours. Farm Family Food, the heart of Farm Bureau in Illinois.
All right, welcome back to RFD Today on a Friday. I'm DeLawes Yonke. Always pleased to have in studio Gene Payne, President of Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association. How are you? Welcome.
Good morning. Good.
The items, the to-do list.
Yeah.
And we can do this where we can do fertilizer one and chemical the other. We may do a little more than fertilizer this go around.
Okay.
We have this just-in-time system. There's only so much to be stored.
I know.
It depends upon the river.
Mm-hmm.
And the river,
yeah.
And the river's moving, which means the river is moving in a manner that won't allow the boats to move.
Right.
So what are you up against this go around?
The only fertilizer that we can get in other than through truck movement and barge movement and rail is ammonia, which is by pipeline. Well, the days for ammonia are starting to get more and more problematic. We still, especially in central Illinois, are full to the brim on ammonia storage, in the anticipation of getting last fall's ammonia on this spring, and of course more spring contracts that the dealers have contracted with for spring ammonia. And every day that goes by, the farmers get a little more nervous about wanting to use ammonia ahead of corn if they don't have it on yet. So our guys are full to the brim with ammonia and looking at if they have to switch to UAN, how do we even accomplish that?
What's the time frame? Is it a week?
It's a minimum
from
of
application?
A week.
Because some will try to cheat that 3 to 4 days, and that's a no-no.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, you can hurt the seedlings. There's ways you can try to do it with RTK to make it a little bit less cumbersome, but it's typically 7 days and preferably 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah,
talking about 7 days and already the 1st of May and not getting any in anywhere.
Yeah,
so.
And then our retailers who've got spring ammonia that they've ordered that's still at the terminal and maybe won't be able to take delivery of it because they're full. I mean, we can only store 15% of our ammonia of typically what goes on in a year. So they're looking at the possibility of having to pay the fertilizer manufacturers storage fees all summer long per ton. So, everybody is really not in a great place right now.
No, certainly not. And not a whole lot of optimism in the near-term future either. I mean, we still see these forecasts continue to show active weather patterns, and there's plenty of precipitation up north that still needs to come our way. So this logistics puzzle is going to be a tough one to solve.
It will be. I guess all you can say is that we have a real skill in agriculture to get things done in a short amount of time. I mean, I know our retailers have a lot of pent-up energy that they're ready to get out there and do this work, and farmers can sure get things planted quick if we get a break. So I think there should still be some optimism that the latter part of May and all of June might be a good time for everybody. We'll do our best to get fertilizer. Our guys are creative, and I don't think you should underestimate the fertilizer industry's ability to deliver, but we'll do the best we can with it with what we have to deal with.
If it is so river dependent, then does that mean that there are several stops along the way up the Mississippi, for example, or then also up the Illinois?
I think the last time I was in here, I talked about the problem was that, grain goes downriver and fertilizer comes up. Well, there hasn't been a lot of grain movement either. And so a lot of those barges haven't been available. But, having said that, we can move UAN by truck and rail. And that will happen. And we've gone to great lengths to get fertilizer in the past, driving all the way down to Oklahoma to get it in certain years when things got tight, or over to Ohio. They've had a decent fertilizer season in Ohio this spring. So it's possible that there may be some, lessening of that over there that might help Illinois. So I think there should still be, not a doomsday bell, but every day that goes by gets tougher to loss. But there are ways that we can get fertilizer in here. It just might not be exactly the way we've been used to doing it.
Well, we talk about this we've talked about especially in weed management with dicamba management. You should always have a plan A, B, and C. So there may be different plans in this one as well.
Yeah, so plan A is there is going to be a cutoff date for dicamba on June 30th. And I want people to understand that the reasons we put the cutoff date into place have not changed. I know people get nervous as they think about, oh my gosh, I plan to have my soybeans planted by now. It wouldn't have been an issue. There's always still that 45-day after planting label restriction on dicamba. So if you plant, you have 45 days to use dicamba. So really, DeLoss, until we get to May 15th, that 45-day cutoff on the label already supersedes the June 30th cutoff.
Right.
But just bear in mind that even if you get beans planted in early June, you still have almost 30 days to use dicamba. The reason for the cutoff was to protect other crops, and especially trees and specialty crops. In the summertime, if a growth regulator gets out there in hot temperatures, we know what happens. And we had a record number of complaints in Illinois last year. I know not everybody had an unfortunate experience, but as a state, we all believed that we wanted to do this and we needed to do it, and we need to just manage around that cutoff date going into this, because our organization is solidly behind it for all those reasons. So we want this technology in the marketplace for the foreseeable future, not just 2019, but 2020 and down the road. And to do that, we've got to be responsible with this product. And so the reasons for the cutoff date haven't changed. And anybody who might want to entertain the idea of violating it should understand, too, that it will be viewed by the Department of Ag as a willful and negligent action, and that rises to the level of having your license suspended.
Those are consequences worth considering.
So your license suspended means not only do you lose access to dicamba, you lose access to all the other restricted use pesticides.
Right.
So that it's serious. But again, we have time. And I know the University of Illinois will be putting out a bulletin on how to manage weeds in the spring. There's other products that can be added with dicamba, pre-plant, right after planting, early emergence that we can get through the season. And so everybody should really just think about, how we need to manage this system, knowing what we're dealing with. And in a state like Illinois, we always have to be responsible about these things, whether it's pesticides or fertilizers. We make these policies for the long-term success of Illinois agriculture, knowing we have an urban society out there that is always a challenge, so we really have to be on our game and do the right things.
Gene Payne, we'll get back to that too. Gene Payne, president of Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association. We'll have more to come on RFD today.
Comes to social media, Sabrina Berkowitz connects rural routes for you. Sabrina covers a broad range of ag topics, so Farm Bureau members are the first to know about key issues. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I grew up with a grain and livestock farm in my extended family, and today I really enjoy helping people learn how to use social media to advocate for agriculture.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Warmer weather means a longer honeydew list. Your county Farm Bureau can help you stay on top of your project list and save you money along the way. A Farm Bureau membership offer includes discounts on equipment and supplies from Grainger, plus free shipping on all standard Grainger products. Browse thousands of items from landscaping equipment to power tools. Anything you need to get the job done, Grainger has it. Not a Farm Bureau member? Call us at 309-557-2689. Or visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Corn is actually lower today. That may be the first day this week, but it's only down a penny. Soybeans, I guess an example of short covering here, or a little profit taking, where they've only up about a penny after losing so much these last couple of weeks. July corn down 1 1/4, 3.69 1/4. September down 1 1/4, 3.76 1/2. December down 3/4, 3.86 1/4. And July soybeans are down 1 3/4, 8.45. August down up 1 3/4, 8.51 1/4. November beans up 1, 8.66. July wheat down a nickel, 4.39. Livestock, June hogs up 20, 92.95, and June cattle up 60 cents, 114.27. DeLoss Yankee, RFD Radio Network. Welcome back to RFD today on a Friday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Say, Gene, if you have livestock or farm equipment or land or services to sell, you can sell it fast with Farm Week classified ads. Call the number 800-573-6120 or submit online at farmweeknow.com. Gene Payne, there you go. president of Fertilizer and Chemical Association, joining us in studio. And, oh my gosh, so much to contend with, including a couple of cases last week. One was in the Peoria area, one was up in Chicago suburbs of anhydrous, not properly, or I don't know exactly, I don't know how to best to describe that, so if you don't mind.
So we had an incident with a tractor, a toolbar, and 2 nurse tanks on one running gear behind it. Not an uncommon combination. You'll see that a lot in Illinois. Unfortunately, this was in a very populated area, so we had an incident where the ammonia was released and there was actually shelter in place, and then people taken to the hospital. What I will say to people out there is that one of the things that we stress, whether it's retailer training or grower training, is when you leave the field of application, you must have your hoses disconnected and the valves turned off to the nurse tanks. The most common cause of the release is something happens with that hose. It gets stretched, it gets drug, it gets rubbed. If there's a little bit of a release, there's not enough pressure release to make the excess flow valve on the tank shut. So if your valves are open and your hoses are connected and anything happens in transit, you will experience what happened in Chicago. Now, downstate Illinois, you might be in an unpopulated area and maybe it's not that big of a deal. It's always a big deal. But you don't have that
nervous
impact.
with the wind blowing as well, just what kind of impact that might have.
Well, the wind blowing is actually a good thing sometimes because it helps dissipate the cloud. The problem with what happened in Beach Park is there was no wind and it was early morning and all the moisture on a wet spring morning is down on the ground, and ammonia has an affinity for water, so it hung in a cloud. And I'm no doubt that those people were terrified up there, who'd never been around it before, didn't know what they were dealing with. The other thing that has to happen, and this applies to when farmers are pulling tanks. This is state and federal law. You must call 911. You must tell the operator this is anhydrous ammonia. So those people that come to the scene to help know what they're getting into. If this just gets reported by a bystander as a white cloud, who knows what that is? Well, ammonia is not smoke. It's ammonia, and it can kill you. And so we will take... these can be common mistakes that we see happen in downstate Illinois. Those hoses have got to be disconnected when you're on a public roadway. Those valves must be turned off, and you must be able and ready to call the local authorities, the National Response Center, and the Illinois Emergency Management Agency when you have a release. It's fine to call your fertilizer dealer and say, hey, I've got a problem, but you should only do that after you've made those other phone calls.
Is there an order? I remember shutting off the acetylene tanks. You don't want to get that sort of thing wrong and build pressure in the acetylene tank. I assume there's an order in there as well.
So we cover that in training. Always close the valves first, and then you have to bleed off the hose because ammonia will have pressurized those hoses, and there's little valves on the hoses. You can bleed those off before you disconnect them, and then they have to be secured. So those hoses, when you're driving down the road, turning into fields, going, across field crossings, things jiggle and rattle around, and if you don't secure your hoses the right way, or you don't have the safety chains on the nurse tanks, or the hitch pins and the clips in the right place, things can come apart. And when they come apart, that's when we have ammonia releases.
I wonder if there'll be more dual tanks being used this year because of the time window that we have. Right. And pulling one tank behind is probably, bringing a second one might be completely different than having that just the one
actually, we pass a law to put those 2 tanks side by side on one running gear because really it's more safe because every time you have 2 nurse tanks being towed behind another, you get that whipping action. Right. And 25 miles an hour is also a key. We never recommend pulling tanks more than 25 miles an hour because if you lose control of that, again, this is an unforgiving product. You cannot be lucky with it. You have to be safe with it. And we've had accidents where people just get going too fast and lose control of those nurse tanks. It's worse when they're in tandem and they start whipping. It's a little better when they're side by side. But again, those side by side tanks are two 1,000 or 2 1,500-gallon tanks. And so there's a lot of product there that many times is plumbed together to make it efficient. And if you don't manage that hose properly, then you have a major release like we saw last Thursday.
Wow. That's part of this now shortened window to get things done in the spring.
Right.
It's one thing to move quickly. Hustle, don't hurry was one of the. Yeah. That's one of the things I try to tell my kid. Yeah. Hustle, don't hurry. That's something to probably keep in mind for these next few weeks.
So don't you think that farmer in northern Illinois wished that he could have that 5 minutes back that it might have taken him to disconnect those hoses?
5 minutes. Yeah.
And because look what it's catastrophic for the ammonia industry. The number one question I had to answer from the Chicago news media is why are we using this product as a fertilizer? Aren't there safer forms of fertilizer to use? And the answer is yes, they are. You know, we like ammonia is great because it's 82% nitrogen. It's so efficient, and Illinois soils are so conducive to it, and we like to have that as a choice for farmers. But, you know, the general public really is within their right to ask that question. And what we'd like to see is never have them ask it because we never have accidents, right?
Run all the livestock out and then wonder why we don't have any manure to spread around. But that's a different topic for a different day. By the way, we have 3 minutes here.
Okay.
We could get back to that dicamba date.
Yes.
Because I feel like we're going to be discussing that a lot
Right.
in the next 6 weeks.
When we debated the dicamba cutoff in February, we talked about the possibility there might be delayed planting. But everybody at the table, including all the farm groups, the Department of Ag, the chemical registrants were there, all decided that there's still, even if we didn't get our soybeans planted exactly when we wanted to, there would still be ample opportunity to use this product within your weed management program. But after July 1st, it poses too much risk to other crops and other plants, and that's the biggest vulnerability that we face, is that people are critical of the off-target movement into trees and into residential areas and into other sensitive areas. Sometimes we can swallow hard when we see beans cupped up, but the people who are critical of pesticide use in Illinois agriculture are very, very concerned when trees become affected. And July is not a good time for growth regulators to be going off target, and that's why we have the cutoff date.
There'll still be other products to use.
There will be other products.
This is just a product-specific
yes.
cutoff date.
Yes.
And this is another thing because, 2 years on the label.
Mm-hmm.
So let's show some progress.
We want this product around in 2020. In 2020, most of the Liberty Link beans are going to be traded to also be tolerant to dicamba. Now, what a shame it would be to loss if we couldn't manage this product well in 2019, lose the ability to use it in 2020 when most of the soybeans will suddenly become tolerant to it, and then we have nothing legal to use post-app in the dicamba marketplace. So we really thought long-term about this cutoff date. We want this product to be available, knowing that these more and more soybeans wouldn't be traded to handle it. Now, the trees are always going to be sensitive. The non-GMO soybeans are always going to be sensitive, so we always will have that consideration. But long-term, the genetic modification is going to get better for everybody, but we got to keep the product legal to use, because the worst-case scenario is having all this seed technology out there and then not have done the things we needed to do in 2017, 18, and 19 to manage it properly, lose the use altogether, including possibly in corn, and then be looking at ourselves thinking, wow, I wish this wouldn't have happened, and I wish we could have seen it happening. When we discussed that cutoff date, we looked into the future.
One thing that I've mentioned, too, is that we have 30 seconds here, but fewer complaints is progress, but
Yes.
It's not quite the point either.
No, it's important that we get fewer complaints. It'd be nice to be able to say in 2019 we had fewer complaints than in 2018. That would be a successful thing to say.
Mm-hmm. That would be success.
That would be success.
Not totally the point, but that would
Yes.
be success. Hey,
all right.
Well, at least we have something to talk about.
Yes.
Good to see you.
Thanks to the loss.
Gene Payne, Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association, online at ifca.com. Final segment to come here on a Friday, RFD Today. Let's check livestock markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Steers and heifers 2 to 3 lower in Greenville this week on high choice, $1 to $3 lower on low choice and selects. Slaughter steers and heifers from 124 to 127, some high yielding up to 130, some prime steers at 133. Feeder steers and heifers in some cases $3 to $5 lower. 6-weight steers 115 to 140, 7 weights 100 to 120. 5-weight heifers 135 to 145, 6 weights 100 to 130. Illinois direct hog market is held pretty firm this week, $53 to $58 a hundredweight. That's steady pretty much the entire week on the top end, but $4 higher on the lower end. The sow market, though, continues to move sharply higher. In fact, heavy sows topped at $75 a hundredweight in the Illinois direct market. DeLoss Yankee, RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org.
Welcome back to RFD today on a Friday. I'm DeLawrence Yonke. Next week on the program, first Monday of May, you always talk to Mark Gebhardt's first Monday of the month. Mark Gebhardt's Executive Director of Governmental Affairs and Commodities at Illinois Farm Bureau. And later on Tuesday, Ellen Ferguson, who writes for Congressional Quarterly, we will visit with her. And it should be a big week in D.C. with just one case in particular that apparently there's a significant Chinese delegation coming to the U.S. this coming week to hopefully get much closer to a deal in U.S.-China trade discussions. So we will certainly talk about that next week. Right now, we'll visit with Serena Berkowitz, Senior Social Media Specialist at Illinois Farm Bureau. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Usually, and always, you always have informative, you have good information, practical information to share.
But I heard you have
today.
I have
a little thing for you. We're going to play a little game here.
Surprises. Tables are getting turned on me.
The game is called Kentucky Derby Horse or Pop Star.
Okay.
Modern pop star.
Okay, this is all about pop culture, right?
I'm going to give you a name and you tell me if it's a Kentucky Derby horse or someone in the pop music business.
Okay.
Okay. Code of honor.
Horse.
That's correct. Very good. Childish Gambino.
Musician.
Very good. I thought that one might be a little easy, but I just love the name of it. Okay, Gray Magician.
Horse.
Horse is correct. You're 3 for 3. One more here. Long Range Toddy.
That's a horse.
That's a horse. Very good.
I know more about horse racing than you think.
I am impressed. I don't have any sound effects. That's a mess on my part, but 4 for 4. Very good.
Yeah,
good for you. That was not staged at all, too.
Yeah,
you got those
I had
right
no idea. That was I was a little nervous about DeLaw's surprise, but that was okay.
That's not bad. No, nobody's harmed.
We can handle that.
We talk about the Plant 19 hashtag.
Yes.
I've seen No Plant 19 hashtag. I've seen a couple other different hashtags to describe the planting delays that we've been going through.
I've seen a lot of pictures of tractors with planters or like tillers on the back and sitting in big ponds of water in fields.
Yeah. Where some you even wonder if they're staged or if that's
I know.
Is that really something out there?
Yeah. Like I saw one meme where the guy was like, they said it'll be okay to leave my tractor out overnight, and like it was up to its top of the wheels and water, and he was wading out to it.
There have been a couple of cases where we've gotten more than we anticipated overnight, and you walk out and the landscape looks a lot different.
I know. I'm seeing a lot of hashtags related to the flood or flooding, because just about every river in Illinois is flooded its banks at this point, especially down in southern Illinois. The Pike Scott County Farm Bureau Manager Blake Roderick sent us some great footage of US 54 at the Mississippi River Bridge approach and how they were preparing the levee around that area.
Goodness. Turn around, don't drown. That's something you hear quite a bit. Yes. I mean, if it's high water, you just don't know how deep that is, especially times like this. So turn around, don't drown.
Exactly.
What else? What's
going on?
I
got a Facebook tip of the week because I always try to come with something useful.
What do you think? Facebook's got a little different format, doesn't it?
Well, are you on an Android or an iPhone?
I'm on an iPhone.
Okay, then you must have got an update.
That logo looks a little different. There used to just be a search bar. Now you have to push forward.
Well, you know what I noticed this week on my Android is my emojis have been enhanced.
Oh.
Like the like, love, happy, cry, angry emojis on Facebook. So they've been enhanced. They're a little higher resolution and more definition, which I noticed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a little. That's not the tip of the week, though.
No, that's not the tip of the week. So, did you know, DeLoss, that Facebook has a town hall with all your elected legislators right there in it, so you can go and interact with them directly?
I'd like to say that, of course, I knew that, but no, I did not know that. Where is there a button for that, or how do you find it?
You know, I haven't found the button, but I did, like in the app, I haven't found the button, but I'm pretty sure it's probably in that menu.
Okay.
But if you're on a tablet or your laptop, or if you're listening while you're at work, you can go to facebook.com/townhall. You can probably even Google that too, and then it'll open in your app when you tap on it. But if you have your location set, or even if you don't, it probably has a general idea of where you are. It's got all of your elected leaders, like state and federal leaders in there. But you can also turn on a constituents badge for yourself, so when you interact with them, they will know that you are one of their constituents.
Wow.
Yes. So most elected leaders are now using some form of social media, and this really drives that idea home.
So as opposed to Twitter, which could be some anonymous account from who knows where,
yes.
This is Facebook, where we could verify where people are.
Exactly.
And who they are.
Yes, and who they are and what they want to talk about. And you can even turn on voting reminders for yourself, which is great. And they had an Explore tab, and in that I was getting posts from like the City of Bloomington Police Department and the Fire Department. So it was, going down from state even into like my local county and city officials and EMS. So that was pretty interesting.
That is. There's good and bad about having that kind of access. You know what I mean? So yeah, everybody be good neighbors about that.
How it would be to be the social media person for somebody in an elected office. I see a lot of things coming across our Twitter when we mention those elected officials, and I can imagine for them it's even a more difficult challenge.
Yes. Oh, gosh, I would certainly think so. With us bringing to mind, though, there is the action request that is in place, especially the Senate passed its legislation. It's headed to the House. Illinois Farm Bureau is asking folks to call their state legislators and to tell them to vote no on Amendment 1.
Yes, so progressive income tax.
That's right. We're already out of time. Always goes so fast, Sabrina. Thanks so much.
Cinco de Mayo is Sunday.
Cinco de Mayo. That's right.